Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe and turn on notifications. Samuel woke that Saturday, feeling the day held a definite and measurable potential for productivity. It was a feeling he cherished. A quiet hum of order beneath the surface of things. Sunlight streamed through the bedroom window, lighting up Helen's face as she slept peacefully beside him. She was 36. Her dark hair, usually pulled back in a practical knot, fanned out across the pillow. He noted the smooth, untroubled line of her brow, and felt a familiar, low-wattage sense of contentment. He smiled, kissed her forehead gently, a gesture performed with the same unconscious precision he applied to signing off on a quarterly report, and got up, without making a sound. At 38, Samuel was a man of routines. As a senior financial analyst at a mid-sized investment firm, his weekdays were a carefully structured landscape of market data, risk assessments, and client portfolios. He managed variables for a living, mitigating risk and ensuring predictable returns. He had applied the same philosophy to his life. Weekends were sacred, allocated to family with the same diligence he gave to a blue-chip stock. Helen, his wife of 12 years, was an elementary school teacher. She possessed a calm predictability that Samuel had found profoundly attractive. He hadn't chosen passion. He had chosen stability. He hadn't built a romance. He had constructed a life, brick by brick, just as solid and dependable as the market principles he trusted. Their 9-year-old daughter, Chloe, was the centerpiece of this construction. A bright, happy child whose stories from school were the primary source of light in their home. Helen was organized, punctual, dependable. With her, there were no unpleasant surprises. No dramatic market crashes, just a stable, steady appreciation over time. That was the foundation of their marriage. After his morning coffee, while Helen took Chloe to her swimming lesson, Samuel decided to wash her car. The silver SUV was coated in a week's worth of dust and grime. A minor but noticeable disruption in the otherwise pristine order of their suburban life. He filled a bucket with soapy water, grabbed the hose, and started with the windows. Water ran down the hood, washing away the accumulated grime in satisfying streams. Samuel liked tasks like this. Simple, tangible, something with a clear beginning, and a definitive end. He could start with a problem, and finish with a solution, in under an hour. After cleaning the outside to a reflective shine, he opened the doors to vacuum the interior. He wiped down the dashboard, the cup holders, the door panels with a damp cloth. When he got to the back seat, he attached the narrow nozzle to the vacuum and started sucking up the cookie crumbs and stray bits of paper, the inevitable byproducts of transporting a child. And that's when he saw it. Tucked deep in the crevice, between the seat cushion and the backrest, was a small white button. It was simple, plain, the kind one would find on a man's dress shirt. Samuel turned off the vacuum. The sudden silence of the garage, feeling heavy. He picked up the button. It was cool and smooth in his palm. He turned it over, examining the 4 tiny holes in the center. For a moment, he thought it might be his. But the thought was dismissed as quickly as it arose. He hadn't worn a white dress shirt in months. He preferred blues and grays, colors that offered less contrast with his ties. Colors that were safer. Still, a good analyst verifies his data. He went back inside, walked into their bedroom, and opened his closet. All his white shirts were there, hanging in a neat row, each one complete, every button intact. He walked back to the garage, the small plastic disc now feeling strangely significant in his hand. He felt an odd compression in his chest. It wasn't pain. It was more like the air had grown dense, heavier. As if the atmospheric pressure in the garage had suddenly increased. Samuel slipped the button into the pocket of his shorts, and finished cleaning the car. But his movements were mechanical now. The earlier satisfaction replaced by a disquieting sense of anomaly. The system had produced an error, a piece of data that did not fit the model. When Helen came back with Chloe an hour later, he said nothing. He just smiled, asked how swimming had gone, and listened as Chloe excitedly recounted her victory of swimming an entire length of the pool without stopping. Helen beamed, her green eyes bright with pride for her daughter, and Samuel felt a surge of foolishness. A button, it was just a button. A stray object in a world full of stray objects. Maybe it belonged to a friend she had given a ride to. Maybe a fellow teacher she had helped carry supplies. Maybe it was his. And he had simply forgotten. The explanations were all plausible, each with a high degree of probability. But the doubt was an outlier in his data set. And Samuel, as he would soon learn, had a very low tolerance for outliers. In the days that followed, Samuel started watching Helen differently. It wasn't a conscious decision. Not at first. It was more like a new analytical filter had been applied to his perception of her. He tried to ignore it, to dismiss the button as insignificant statistical noise. But the anomaly persisted, demanding explanation. When she said she was going to the grocery store, a process he had witnessed hundreds of times, his mind now ran a new set of calculations. Is that all she's doing? What is the standard deviation for a trip to the grocery store? 45 minutes? An hour? He found himself glancing at the clock when she left, and again when she returned. When she went to the gym 3 times a week, a routine as fixed as the opening bell of the stock market, he now wondered if she was really on the elliptical, or if she was somewhere else entirely. His observation became more granular. Did a text message make her smile? Who was it from? His mind, trained to find patterns, began to construct them from thin air. A male coworker she mentioned in passing during dinner? Why did she talk about him so much? Was the frequency statistically significant? Every mundane detail of their shared life was now a data point to be scrutinized, logged, and cross-referenced against the initial anomaly of the white button. The quiet discomfort soon festered into a need for active investigation. One evening, while Helen was in the shower, the sound of running water a steady drone in the background. He picked up her phone from the nightstand. His heart hammered against his ribs. A frantic, unscheduled rhythm. This was a clear breach of protocol. A violation of the unspoken terms of their partnership. But the need to resolve the data discrepancy was stronger than his sense of propriety. His thumb hovered over the screen. He scrolled through her messages. Nothing. Conversations with her friends about recipes. With other teachers about school meetings. With her mother about her father's upcoming birthday. He checked her call log. He even opened her photo gallery. Everything was perfectly, maddeningly, normal. The data was clean. But the clean data did not bring him peace. A rational mind would have been reassured. Samuel's analytical mind, now tainted with suspicion, saw something else. Maybe she deleted the incriminating texts. Maybe she had a second phone. An off-the-books account. The absence of evidence was not evidence of absence. To his increasingly paranoid mind, it was evidence of a sophisticated cover-up. Helen started to notice. He was quieter at dinner. His focus seemed to drift. One night, while they were watching a movie on the sofa, she muted the volume and turned to him. "Sam, are you okay?" she asked. Her brow furrowed with genuine concern. "You seem a world away." He blinked, pulling his focus back to the living room, to her face. "I'm fine," he said, the words feeling foreign in his mouth. "Just tired. It's been a long quarter at work." Helen didn't seem fully convinced. She studied his face for a few seconds. Searching for something. He held his expression neutral, a practiced mask he wore in difficult negotiations. Finally, she sighed. And turned her attention back to the screen, unmuting the television. But the space between them on the sofa felt wider now. A silent, growing chasm. The lie hung in the air, another crack in the foundation he had so carefully constructed. He was no longer a husband. He was an auditor. And his own home had become the subject of a relentless, internal investigation. Samuel's paranoia hit a new level. The need for data, for hard evidence, became an obsession that overshadowed all rational thought. The following week, he started following her. He told himself it was a logical, if extreme, step. He was simply expanding the scope of his data collection. He didn't do it every day. Just on the Tuesday and Thursday she was scheduled to go to the gym after school. He would leave work early, citing a phantom appointment, and park his car down the street from her school, waiting. He kept a safe distance, 2 or 3 cars back, his heart pounding with a mixture of shame and adrenaline. He watched her car pull out of the school parking lot. he tailed her. The first time, she went to the grocery store. Then the gym, then home. Perfectly normal. The second time, she went to the dry cleaner. Then a friend's house. Then home. All perfectly explainable. Each time, his investigation yielded nothing. Yet each time, his suspicion grew. She was being careful. She knew she was being watched. The logic was circular. Insane. And to him, perfectly sound. It was on a Wednesday, a day he wasn't even planning to follow her, that everything came to a head. He had left work early and was driving home when he saw her silver SUV pulling into a gas station. On impulse, he pulled into the same station and parked behind a large delivery van, his head ducked down. He was just observing. He watched her fill the tank, pay at the pump, and get back into her car. But as she was pulling out, her eyes swept across the parking lot and for a fraction of a second, they met his in her rearview mirror. He saw the flicker of recognition. Then confusion. He hadn't hidden himself well enough. Helen stopped her car abruptly, put it in park, and got out. She walked straight over to his vehicle, her steps firm and deliberate. She tapped on his window with her knuckles. A sharp, demanding sound. Samuel felt a flush of heat creep up his neck. He was caught. Trapped. He rolled down the window, unable to meet her gaze. Helen crossed her arms, her green eyes locked on him, a storm brewing in their depths. "You're following me, Sam. Seriously. What is going on with you?" He couldn't lie. Not now. The carefully constructed walls of his composure crumbled. He spilled it all, right there in the gas station parking lot, the sound of passing traffic a dull roar around them. He told her about the button, about the doubt that had taken root in his mind, about the late-night phone checks, about the suffocating suspicion that he couldn't shake. He spoke in a low, rushed monotone, the words of a man confessing to a madness he didn't understand himself. Helen listened to everything, her expression shifting from anger to bewilderment, and then to something else entirely. When he finally finished, his confession hanging in the exhaust-filled air between them, she laughed. It was not a mocking laugh. It was a laugh of genuine, unadulterated relief. "Sam. Honey," she said, shaking her head as if he were a silly child. "It's just a button." He stared at her, confused. "I took some of your clothes to the tailor 2 weeks ago," she explained, her voice soft and reassuring. "Remember? That one white shirt you have, the expensive one, had a loose button on the cuff. She fixed it and reinforced the others. That button must have fallen out of the bag in the back seat when I was bringing the clothes home. I didn't even notice." The explanation was perfect. It was simple, logical, and it accounted for everything. It slotted neatly into his world, resolving the anomaly that had been tormenting him for weeks. The immense pressure in his chest suddenly vanished. Samuel felt a wave of relief so intense he almost laughed, too. He got out of the car and hugged her, right there between the gas pumps, apologizing over and over. "I'm sorry, Helen. I'm so sorry. I've been going crazy." She accepted his apology, stroking his back. "It's okay," she murmured. "We're okay." But as they drove home in their separate cars, Samuel replayed the moment in his mind. There was something in the way she smiled. A slight tension at the corners of her mouth that he couldn't quite place. Her relief had felt almost practiced. He dismissed the thought. He was being paranoid again. The case was closed. He had to believe. It was closed. For a week, Samuel tried to go back to normal. He forced himself to trust. To delete the suspicious filter from his perception. He stopped checking the time when Helen went out. He made a conscious effort to be more present. To listen to her stories about school without searching for hidden meanings. He told himself the anomaly had been resolved. The portfolio was balanced again. The following Saturday, they went to the grocery store together. Chloe was at a sleepover at a friend's house, and they took the chance to do the weekly shopping without the chaos of a 9-year-old trying to sneak candy into the cart. It was a quiet morning at the store. The aisles wide and brightly lit. It felt normal. Domestic. Helen was in the produce section, weighing apples, and checking the firmness of pears. Samuel was standing by the cart, looking at the shopping list. And that's when he saw him. A tall man with dark hair, neatly combed back, was walking down the aisle. He wore the store's red polo shirt with a name tag on his chest that read Marcus, manager. He walked with the easy confidence of someone who knew every inch of the place. He wasn't looking at them. But then Helen looked up. And Samuel saw the change. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to a casual observer. But to Samuel, whose senses were now permanently heightened, it was like a flare in the dark. Her body tensed. Her shoulders lifted slightly. Her breath seemed to catch in her throat. For a fraction of a second. The manager, Marcus, glanced over at her. And there was something in that glance. A silent exchange that lasted less than 2 seconds, but seemed to contain 1,000 words. It was a look of shared history. Of familiarity that went beyond a simple customer-manager relationship. Helen quickly looked away. Her attention snapping back to the fruit with an exaggerated focus. But her hands were trembling. Samuel watched as she grabbed an apple and put it in the plastic bag, nearly dropping it. She tried to act normal, turning to him with a bright, brittle smile. "I think these are good, don't you?" The damage was done. Samuel felt that same sensation again, the one from the garage. The air grew thick, the ambient noise of the supermarket distant and muffled. All the doubt, all the suspicion he had so carefully buried, came rushing back with the force of a tidal wave. The comforting lie from the gas station parking lot, shattered into a million pieces. He said nothing. He finished the shopping in a cold, methodical silence. Paid at the register, and loaded the bags into the trunk. On the drive home, Helen tried to make conversation, asking about his week, talking about a funny thing a student had said. Samuel answered in monosyllables. She noticed his silence. But didn't press the issue. That night, after Helen had gone to bed, Samuel stayed awake in the living room, a single lamp casting long shadows on the walls. The house was silent. He pulled out his laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating his grim face. He opened a search engine. And typed, "Private investigators in Crestwood." He found one with good reviews, a man named Peterson who promised discretion and results. He sent an email, explaining the situation in cold, detached prose. He needed answers. He needed to know if he was losing his mind. Or if his instincts were finally pointing him toward the devastating truth. Peterson replied the next morning with his fees, timelines, and a guarantee of absolute discretion. Samuel accepted everything without negotiation. He transferred the upfront payment, and waited. It was 10 days of silent torture. 10 days where he performed the role of husband and father with chilling precision. He kissed Helen in the morning. Played with Chloe in the evening. Worked, ate, and watched television. But inside, he was a hollow shell. A man simply waiting for a verdict. On the 10th day, the report arrived in his inbox. An attached file. Password protected. The password instructions were in the body of the email. Samuel waited until nightfall. After Helen and Chloe were asleep, he locked himself in his home office, and opened the email. He stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed the password. Their wedding anniversary. He clicked enter. And the file opened. The file contained a dozen photographs. And a 2-page report. Samuel felt a strange calm as he looked at them. The chaos of uncertainty was gone. Replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. Like a scalpel, the photos were clinical. Time-stamped. Photo 1. Helen's silver SUV entering the parking lot of the Starlight Motel, a cheap establishment on the industrial edge of town. Photo 2. The store manager, Marcus, entering the same motel 10 minutes later. Photo 3. Helen leaving 2 hours later, fixing her hair as she walked to her car. Photo 4. Marcus leaving shortly after, adjusting his shirt. There were more photos. Helen and Marcus, sitting at a small table in a dimly lit cafe, their hands almost touching. The dates and times corresponded perfectly with the Tuesdays and Thursdays, when she was supposedly at the gym. The report provided the details. The man's name was Marcus Turner. 33. Manager at the Market Basket for 2 years. Divorced 6 months ago. Clean record. Dr. Just an ordinary man, having an affair with another ordinary man's wife. Samuel read the report 3 times. The first time, he felt a surge of white-hot anger. The second time, a deep, crushing pain. The third time, he felt nothing but a chilling resolve. The white button wasn't his. It had never been his. It was Marcus's. It had probably come loose during one of their encounters in the back seat of her car, on an afternoon when they couldn't wait to get to the motel. The story about the tailor was a lie. Her relieved laugh at the gas station had been theater. Everything was a lie. His entire marriage was a fraudulent enterprise. He didn't sleep that night. In the morning, he went to work but couldn't focus on the numbers on his screen. They seemed trivial. In the afternoon, he called a divorce lawyer and made an appointment. The next day, he was in a sterile conference room, laying it all out, showing the lawyer the investigator's report. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Miss Davies, listened, took notes, and said, "You've got an ironclad case. Adultery proven. Irrefutable evidence. We can seek primary custody of Chloe, keep the house, and push for a favorable asset split." Samuel nodded. He wanted all of it. This was no longer about emotion. It was about liquidation. He was closing out a bad investment, and he intended to recover as much of his principal as possible. He planned the confrontation carefully. Not at home. Not in private. A private confrontation would allow for tears, excuses, and a semblance of dignity. Helen didn't deserve that kindness. She deserved to have her carefully constructed world dismantled in the cruelest way possible, in front of the people whose opinions she valued most. The following Saturday, there was a family dinner at Helen's parents' house. Her siblings, their spouses, her nieces and nephews, everyone would be there. Chloe would be playing in the backyard with her cousins, shielded from the storm about to break. Samuel arrived with Helen, playing his part to perfection. He greeted everyone, smiled, made small talk. Helen's mother commented on how thin he looked. He said it was stress from work. Helen held his hand. The supportive, perfect wife. After dinner, when everyone was gathered in the living room sipping coffee and eating dessert, Samuel stood up. He tapped his spoon lightly against his cup, the clear, ringing sound cutting through the chatter. Everyone turned to look at him. "Sorry to interrupt," he began, his voice unnervingly calm. "But I need to share something important with all of you." Helen looked at him, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. Her father, seated in his favorite armchair, frowned. Samuel reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a manila envelope, opened it, and began placing the 8 by 10 glossy photos on the coffee table. One by one, like a dealer laying out a poker hand. Helen entering the motel. Marcus entering right after. Helen and Marcus at the cafe. Helen and Marcus leaving the motel, adjusting their clothes. The silence in the room was absolute. A thick, suffocating blanket. No one moved. Helen's mother covered her mouth with a trembling hand, her eyes wide with horror. Her father stared at the photos, then at his daughter, his face flushing a deep, furious red. Her siblings were frozen, their faces masks of disbelief. Helen tried to speak. "Sam, I can explain," she stammered, but her voice was a weak, trembling whisper. She picked up one of the photos, looked at it, and tears began to stream down her face. "It's not what it looks like. It's not what it looks like," Samuel repeated, his voice still quiet, but now laced with ice. "Helen, I hired a private investigator. I have dates, times, and locations. Tuesdays and Thursdays, always when you said you were at the gym. His name is Marcus Turner, manager, at the market. Divorced." He paused, then delivered the final, killing blow. "That button you said was mine? From the tailor? It was his. It fell out of your car during one of your meetings." Helen collapsed into sobs, her head down, her shoulders shaking. Her mother started to move toward her, but her father held her arm in a vice-like grip. "Let her be," he said, his voice hard as granite. "She did this to herself." Helen looked up at Samuel, her face a mess of tears and desperation. "It was just a weakness," she cried. "A confusion in my head. I felt so empty, so lost, and he just showed up. I swear it doesn't mean anything to me." She searched his eyes for any sign of forgiveness, any flicker of the man who had been her husband for 12 years. But Samuel's face was a stone mask. He felt nothing. He had completed his transaction. The asset had been exposed as fraudulent. And now it would be liquidated. The divorce was quick. Samuel's lawyer worked with brutal efficiency. With irrefutable proof of adultery, Helen had little room to negotiate. The court awarded Samuel primary custody of Chloe. He kept the house. Helen was ordered to pay child support. She tried to fight it, but the judge was clear. Her proven infidelity weighed heavily against her. Marcus Turner was fired from the market. In a final, dispassionate act of scorched earth justice, Samuel had anonymously sent a copy of the investigator's report to Marcus's ex-wife. The woman had apparently made a scene at the store, screaming and throwing merchandise. The store owner, faced with a public relations nightmare, had no choice. Marcus was gone by the week's end. Helen tried to reach out to Samuel several times. Messages. Calls. She even showed up at the house once, ringing the doorbell until he threatened to call the police. He blocked her number. He instructed Chloe, through a court-appointed mediator, to speak with her mother only during the scheduled visitation times. And then, he moved on. Or rather, he continued forward. 9 months later, Samuel was in the school parking lot waiting for Chloe to finish her art class. He was looking through some reports on his tablet when he saw Helen. She was thin, too thin. She had deep, dark circles under her eyes, and her hair was pulled back in a messy, careless ponytail. She wore a loose sweatshirt and worn-out sneakers. She spotted his car, hesitated, then walked over. He rolled down his window. "Hi," she said, her voice quiet and hoarse. "Hi," Samuel replied. His tone neutral, devoid of any emotion. "How are you?" she asked. "Good. And Chloe?" "She's happy." Helen swallowed hard, her eyes red-rimmed. "Sam. I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know I ruined everything." Samuel looked at her. Really looked at her. And searched for a flicker of anger, of pity, of lingering love. He found nothing. The account was closed. The books were balanced. "I know you're sorry, Helen," he said, his voice flat. "But it doesn't change anything." Chloe came out of the school then, her backpack bouncing on her shoulders, a wide smile on her face. When she saw her mother, she waved timidly. Helen waved back, a fragile, watery smile on her lips. Samuel got out, took Chloe's hand, put her backpack in the back seat, and opened the passenger door for her. "Bye, Helen," he said, not looking back. "Bye," she whispered, but he was already getting into the car. He drove home, Chloe chattering excitedly about the drawing of a horse she had made in class. He listened to every word. Smiling. Present. When they got home, he made her favorite snack apple slices with peanut butter and helped her with her homework. That night, after she was asleep, he sat on the living room sofa and looked around. The house was tidy. Clean. Full of photos of Chloe smiling. There was peace here. An orderly, predictable peace. It was not the life he had planned, but it was a life with no hidden liabilities, no unexplained variables. It was an honest life. And for the first time in nearly a year, Samuel slept soundly. A deep and dreamless sleep, born not of happiness, but of absolute, chilling certainty.